you have that are holding you back from achieving your weight or health goals. My love for health and fitness allowed me to experience an unexpected and inspiring challenge from an unexpected person. I was in the gym when I glanced over at a friend running on the treadmill. She seemed to be running quite fast, and I remember thinking that I needed to step up my game in regards to my running. Towards the end of my workout, I approached her to let her know that I was impressed by her running. A gauntlet was then thrown down and a challenge set for me. The challenge was to keep up with her on the treadmill at the same pace for 20 minutes. "Are you up for it?" she said. Now, I am not one to shy away from a challenge, but with this one, I was a little nervous. I'm quite fit, however, I was not confident that I could accept this challenge. So what was it that made this challenge unexpected and remarkable? It was the fact that the woman challenging me was 100% blind. She had gone blind over the last 2 years. However, she still goes to the gym 4 to 5 times a week with her dark glasses and white stick and is guided around the gym by friends. Did the fact that she was 100% blind stop her from going to the gym? No. Did the fact that she was 100% blind stop her from challenging me? No, it did not. Did the fact that she was 100% blind stop her from believing in herself and that she was able? No. So what's your excuse? She has not allowed her blindness to define her or use it as an excuse for not doing. What excuses are you using for not going to the gym, losing weight, or living a healthy lifestyle? Be like this inspiring woman who chose not to use excuses to not do, but rather found reasons to do.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Make Health Your Habit podcast live. It's wonderful to have you with me today. It really, truly is. I hope your Sunday has started well for you. It started really well. The weather's lovely here. The weather's really nice here, I have to say, in England. But I know that I always, or often, hopefully today also, that I've got some people from overseas. So, we just use this time here just to say hello. So if you're online, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on LinkedIn, just say hi. Hello, Ken. And I know our guests would like for you to hear from you. So just say hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken Barnes. I am known as a Lean Mind Body Coach. I'm the creator of something called the Lean Mind Body Method, which focuses on 4 areas. It focuses on nutrition, it focuses on sleep, it focuses on exercise, and it focuses on mindset. In essence, I help people to lose weight and manage their diabetes through whole food nutrition, sleep, and behavioral modification. And I love it. I really do love changing people's lives that way. So that's what I'm about. And I've written a book called The Lean Mind Body Method. You can see that there. You can get that on my website. And you can learn all about how I lost 50 pounds, reversed my pre-diabetes, and cured my sleep apnea. And some more stuff that I'm not even going to mention. Do you want to see how I looked before I started my journey? Okay, this is how I looked before I actually started my journey. You see, that's not a real good look, is it? That is how I looked, and the methodology I used helped me to really, really transform my life, and I can help you as well. But today is about Make Health Your Habit. It's a weekly podcast I hold where I get wonderful guests with such expertise knowledge, I should say, to come and share with you how they do what they do. And this week I have 2 wonderful guests with me. But let me just say hello to Aziia. Aziia, good afternoon. Aziia is with us every single Sunday. Fantastic. Thank you very much for your support. He's a doctor himself, and he was on the show at the end of last year. So he's calling from the USA. I think it's Brooklyn. Is it Brooklyn? I think it's Brooklyn. But hopefully the weather's good with you today. So if anyone else is on the line, anyone else is on YouTube, anyone else is anywhere, it's nice to be able to hear from you and for you to say hello. So if you are there, please, it would be great to hear from you. This is going to be a real interactive show. I really want to encourage you during this show. We have two great doctors who have been on the show before. If you have a question during the show, please ask the question, because not only we're going to be discussing some serious illnesses, but we want to give you an opportunity to be able to get your questions answered. So Janet, good after. Listen, the two people who have said hello so far, they're calling from the USA. Hello, Janet. Janet is a wonderful realtor. That's what they call them in the USA. She just finished my program, and it was great working with her and her friend Wanda. So thank you very much. Look, I've got two international guests has said hello so far already. So again, if you're there, say hello. We're going to stop the hello in a few minutes, and then we're going to move on to the show. We're going to discuss a real serious subject today. A real subject, in fact, three serious subjects. It's hypertension, which is blood sugar. Hypertension, which is high blood pressure, I should say. We're also going to discuss diabetes. Last week we talked about pre-diabetes, but diabetes is a serious illness. And we are going to discuss obesity. The irony, those three things are linked. They are linked, and we're going to be discussing how they're linked. And we're going to be discussing some of the disparities in the sense of why is it that these conditions affect disproportionately people from Black and Asian communities. Why? What is it? Is it culture? Is it diet? Is it their behavior? Is it their mindset? Is it a medical institution? So we're going to be discussing that. Let me just say hello to Primrose. Hello, Primrose. Thank you very much for joining us today. So look, I think it's about that time. Listen, hold on, listen. If you tuned in today, you are going to be in line, because I have two great doctors who are going to share some great information with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hat. It's time for the Make Health Your Habit podcast live show. Absolutely. Yes, my favorite time of the weekend, where I get to share some information which I'm incredibly passionate about, and that's information how you can make health your habit. You know, I don't think there's any, I really don't think there's any other habit that you could develop that your future self is going to thank you for. And today we're going to be discussing three illnesses that truly disproportionately affect people from Black and Asian communities, and it's high blood pressure, obesity, and diabetes. And I have two doctors, two GPs from the UK with me today, who are going to be discussing some of those issues, and we're going to go back and forth, and hopefully it will bring some enlightenment to you and in your understanding of these illnesses and how to manage them. All right. So I have two wonderful guests with me. I think the first guest that I'm going to bring back on the stage is a lady who was with us only 2 weeks ago and discussing breast cancer, and she decided to come back. She loved the show so much, and she loved you guys so much. She decided to come back with her colleague today. So the first lady I'm going to introduce you to is Dr. Sesay. Dr. Sesay. Good afternoon.
Hi.
How
Hello
are you today?
again. I'm very well. I'm really excited to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful that you've decided to come back and join us. For everybody who didn't hear your wonderful presentation a little while ago, just give us an introduction to yourself and who you are, please.
Of course. So I'm Dr. Aziia Sesay. I'm an NHS GP. I work in the UK, and basically I love imparting knowledge. I feel like it's very, very important to have the health awareness and the basic information, because as Ken said, it could change and save your life. So that's a passion of mine. And this is why I'm here again, to reach a wider audience, because every little helps.
Thank you very, very much for that. And my next guest, she's just so genuine and so open. I reached out to her originally last year and she came back on. So, my next guest is Dr. Andleed. Say hello, Dr. Andleed. How you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, thank you so much for coming.
You.
Yeah, it's always nice. So, for some people might have, you was in a great show we did last year about the menopause. I mean, we got such great comments about that show. You did so well along with the other ladies. So it's great that you decided to come back today. But for those individuals who didn't hear you in that show when we spoke about the menopause, just please introduce yourself.
So my name is Dr. Andleed Ahmed. I am a GP in Northwest London in England, just for our international guests. So I've been in the NHS for 27 years. My special interests are adolescent mental health, elderly, and actually ethnic minority health. I have 3 kids, and I know Aziza very well. We became friends over Instagram, actually, and I met Ken through Instagram. So it's been a real honor meeting you both.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been wonderful. I'm so humbled by both of you and your knowledge. But so today we're going to discuss a serious subject. We got 3 subjects to discuss. We're just going to go for an overview of the 3 subjects. But I think let's just deal, because we dealt with pre-diabetes this week. Why don't we start with diabetes? And if I ask Dr. Sesay to give us a brief overview of diabetes, then we'll come back to you, Dr. Adelie, and then we can talk about hypertension, and we do that. Okay? Is that good? Yeah?
That's
okay.
Good.
So, diabetes. Tell us, what is it? Possibly, how does it happen? Yeah, just give us an overview of diabetes from your perspective, please.
Okay, so to understand what diabetes is, I always like to talk about, first of all, how our body processes sugar, because it has to do with sugar, right? So whenever we have a meal that's usually starchy or has sugar in it, our body will break it down into smaller, simple sugars that's called glucose, okay? And when this happens, the glucose level, so that blood sugar level, goes up in our blood. And the body recognizes this, and there's an organ called the pancreas, which sits behind the stomach, and it says, okay, we need to try and bring the sugar level down. So it releases a hormone or a chemical known as insulin. And that helps to drive the sugar into the cells so they can use it as fuels. And in that way, it reduces the overall sugar in the blood. So we get back to the equilibrium. And that's just the cycle. Every time we eat, the same thing happens over and over, and the body is used to that. So we maintain a normal sugar level. Now, what happens in diabetes is there's a fault in that system, essentially, right? So it's either the body is not producing any insulin at all, or it's not producing enough insulin, or the body just is not able to process the insulin anymore. And this can happen for several different reasons. So diabetes is a chronic, a long-standing condition where you have excessive sugar in your blood, which then causes severe damage. And as I say, it happens because insulin isn't being processed the way that it's supposed to. Okay. And there are 2 types of diabetes. You have type 1 diabetes, which is the lesser common one. It happens, it accounts to about 15% of the overall people who suffer diabetes, and it usually occurs in younger individuals, but it can happen to older individuals as well. And in that one, there's not much understanding as to why, but your pancreas, which produces the insulin, gets damaged. So you're not producing insulin at all. So in type 1 diabetes, you have no insulin at all, and so the blood sugar cannot be controlled. Type 2 diabetes, which is much more common, it accounts to 85% of the overall people who suffer diabetes. In that instance, there's something that's happened where the body becomes more resistant or less sensitive to insulin, and so the blood sugar levels go up. So that's an overview of diabetes as a whole. I hope that makes sense and I didn't get too
No,
technical.
absolutely, and as you know, this is my subject. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. But this is your show today. This is you talking about. So, is diabetes something that people should be worried about? And
Absolutely,
why?
yes.
Why should they be worried about diabetes?
Diabetes is one of the leading causes of heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, kidney disease. It can cause blindness. It can cause damage to your blood vessels in your legs, everywhere essentially. And if it happens in your legs, that's what leads to amputations occurring. And if it's really severe, it can lead to death. So, absolutely, this is something that really is so important for people to understand what it is, why it occurs, which we've already spoken about. And then we need to also remember what the risks are, what increases our risk of developing diabetes so we can reduce it. And if you do have diabetes, you need to know the things to do to prevent the progression. And actually, sometimes you can go into what's known as remission, where you haven't necessarily cured the diabetes, but your blood sugar level has gone back to the levels of someone who's normal, who doesn't have diabetes. So yeah, this is why it's really important for us to think about. Also, because you mentioned pre-diabetes, so the audience are aware, blood sugar levels are measured in every individual, and we have different ranges. And what we check often to measure blood sugar is what is known as HbA1c, which is the amount of sugar that's in our hemoglobin. Okay. Now, if our HbA1c is less than 42, that's normal. That's the normal range. That's what we would expect. But when it's between 42 and 47, that's what's known as prediabetes, because that's higher than normal, but not high enough to be in the diabetes range. Now, when it's over 48, then you're diabetic, or you're suffering with diabetes. So this is why it's important to know what the different ranges are as well. And people who suffer with pre-diabetes are at very, very high risk of eventually developing diabetes. So you don't want to go that way. Every time you want to go back to what normal is. And it sounds like Ken did such a brilliant job of doing that for himself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But the A1C can also be measured in percentage numbers as well. But yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I quoted it in the UK figures that we use now.
Yeah,
Absolutely, you're right.
yeah.
You're
No,
right.
that's just because that's what we talk about on the show, just so people don't get confused. But absolutely perfect there to an understanding that diabetes is a serious issue. But there's the other issue, which is incredibly serious, is also Dr. Andleed. It's also hypertension. What is another name that hypertension is known under, and what is hypertension, and how does that occur?
So hypertension is otherwise known as high blood pressure. And the reason why high blood pressure is so important to pick up is that most of the time people don't know that they have it. In fact, they've said about a third of the UK population have it and don't know it. So it's a very important figure to know. So blood pressure is made up of two figures, if you've ever had your blood pressure done. The upper figure is what's known as systolic, and that's to do with the blood flowing around your heart. And the lower one, known as the diastolic, is the resistance. You don't need to worry about that so much. And we aim for your blood pressure. High blood pressure is considered above 140 over 90. But ideally, it should be around 120 over 80. So anything lower than that is fab, not too low. Less than 90 over 60 will lead you to other issues, low blood pressure. But between 120 to 140 systolic and 70 to 90 diastolic is where we would try and work on reducing that pressure down, through lifestyle measures, because once it goes above 140 over 90, then we would consider other things such as medication. The causes of blood pressure, no one quite knows, but there are things that can increase your risk of getting blood pressure.
So just like with diabetes, I might be aware if I have diabetes because I have this big thirst, or I'm getting up in the morning and I'm urinating, or even
Yeah.
possibly impotence, or even, a loss of eyesight. Or
Yeah.
so if with diabetes, but what kind of symptoms would lead to, could I be aware of, that might make me aware that I'm suffering from high blood pressure?
Well, that's the scary thing, is that you may not notice it at all, and it's just picked up incidentally. But sometimes you can experience some symptoms. The symptoms that you can commonly get are headaches. You may notice deterioration or problems with your eyesight. You may be feeling a bit dizzy. Things like just feeling like you're struggling. It's like your body is struggling and you get tired quite easily. But the dangerous thing about blood pressure is that the majority of the time you don't know you have it, and it's picked up just incidentally.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that. So let's just talk about the last, well, not just the last, but the other factor, which is known as the big three, which is obesity. And from my reckoning, obesity leads into kind of the big three. So, Dr. Sesay, how does obesity link in? Since you spoke about diabetes in instance, how does obesity link to a diabetes?
Okay, so obesity is one of the risk factors for, I'm sure the audience who are listening. Obesity is essentially where you are well overweight. They often measure they measure the levels using what's known as body mass index, which there's a discussion on that in itself. But essentially, if your body mass index is over 30, then your class is obese. Now, the link with diabetes is essentially something happens to the body when you're obese, which makes it less sensitive to sugar. So you're resistant to sugar, and this is how the diabetes, the type 2 diabetes, occurs. And obviously, the more overweight you are, the worse it will be. So that's the link between obesity and diabetes, type 2 diabetes, though.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dr. Ahmed, what is the link between obesity and hypertension?
With the link between obesity and hypertension, it's not so. I mean, there's a huge link between obesity and diabetes, like Aziza quite rightly said, but it's actually one of the risk factors for developing high blood pressure is obesity, along with things such as, lack of exercise, eating a diet that's high in salt. Over the age of 65, you're at higher risk, drinking lots of alcohol and caffeine, and being of Afro-Caribbean descent as well. But obesity is one of the risk factors for developing blood pressure.
So there are people out there who are obese, they have high blood pressure, and they got diabetes. So these people are invariably at a risk of serious illness. In fact, they have serious illness already, but they're at definite risk of possibly having a something that's really going to affect their health totally adversely. I mean, are those three part of the metabolic syndrome? Because I think there are other two. So it just for yours, we'll leave it at this view, and we'll just kind of bounce between ourselves now. Just can you give the audience let them know what a metabolic syndrome is, please, and the other ones that are included in metabolic syndrome.
Who you posting, me or Aziza?
Yeah, this is a free. You just go in.
Well, I can actually speak personally, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have some of the metabolic syndrome. So actually, I've got PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. I've also got an underactive thyroid, which both obviously predispose to hyperinsulin. Well, the PCOS hyperinsulinemia. And I also, as Aziza knows, I've got immune conditions, so I've been on steroids. So obesity, I'm happy to discuss. It's something that I've struggled with all my life. And I've now landed into the pre-diabetic category. And also, I'm on blood pressure medication. But, hyperinsulinemia, it's a really, when people look at you, they just think she's fat. And it's, she just, but... it's not that. It's such a struggle to lose weight, and I think I was interested when Ken was discussing, how he reversed his and I've been reading into it as well. But the metabolic syndromes are things like your diabetes, your PCOS. These are, I can't. My mind's gone a bit blank. Which are the other ones?
Yeah, you said it. So it's the five of them. You've said, and thank you so much for sharing your story. That's really personal to you, but it's also showing that us doctors, we are human, right? And we are going
Absolutely.
through this as well. So obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, hypothyroidism, as you say, and if you're on medication, steroids, which increases your blood sugar levels. I believe those are the five components for metabolic syndrome, but I might be
Yeah.
wrong. That's what I remember from
I
memory.
think they've also included PCOS as well.
Oh, and PCOS, yeah, polycystic
Yeah.
ovarian syndrome, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the months. So I seem to have gone ping, 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 ping along the way. It's fine, it's something. It gives people a human element of it, so that's why I don't mind sharing it. So.
No, and I do appreciate you sharing that. And the irony is, my protocol treats all of that. But hey, yeah, the PCOS. And my daughter had a discussion about PCOS this week, because my daughter suffers from it. So I understand PCOS, and it's kind of a hidden. People don't realize unless they can see you with the weight or the facial hair. But obviously, because of the testosterone, a lot of people remove the facial hair. But it is something that a lot more women are becoming aware of, which is the reason
And a lot of women suffer from it as well.
Yes,
common.
which leads to pre-diabetes and being overweight and leads to diabetes. So it is something that a lot of women should be aware of. We've had a question coming from Janet, but we're going to come to Janet's question in a moment. So here's my question, which is maybe a little bit controversial. So we spoke about hypertension, we spoke about diabetes, we spoke about obesity, and we've also spoke about how these illnesses can be so nefarious to people's health. So why is it that these illnesses are so prevalent in Black and Asian communities? What is it about the Black and Asian community, or the way the system treats Black and Asian communities, that these illnesses are so prevalent? And again, I'm just gonna leave it to any one of you to come in and let's just play between all of us here. So who wants to take bite this one on?
I think Aziza's chomping at the bit.
I know that Dr. Andleed is also very, very passionate about this, and she's done such. If you follow her on Instagram, Mom and Medic, she's done such amazing posts, really, really pressing on ethnicity and health. And the link and the disparities and so on, because we need to raise awareness, and we need to understand why it is so prevalent, and not just in the UK, all over the world, right? So there are different, suspicions or different ideologies as to why it's the case, and sometimes it's genetics. I feel like they always pin it down to genetics, but I don't completely agree with that being a main reason. I feel like that's sometimes a cop-out, but there's genetics, there's lifestyle factors, what we're eating, are we exercising, the jobs role that we have. Because remember, stress can contribute to high blood pressure, and it can also contribute to diabetes, the way that our body metabolizes things. So there are all of those factors. And you mentioned, because I'm talking about diabetes, according to the ONS, so the Office of National Statistics in the UK, South Asians are 3.5 times more likely to suffer with type 2 diabetes compared to their white counterparts. And it's just one of those things that you think, why is such a major disparity there? Is it also to do with access? Could it be to do with language barriers? Could it also be due to the health awareness? This is why these shows are really, really important, because some people just have no idea. And when we talk about symptoms, for instance, you said that there are no symptoms with hypertension. Some people actually don't have symptoms with diabetes either. They may be tired, and that's their only symptom, and they perhaps will put it down to working a lot and so on, and so their body's getting damaged insidiously, and they're none the wiser. So I'm gonna stop. Otherwise I'll keep going.
No, that's actually a really valid point. I do think genetics is used as an excuse. I think you're right, But I think the big issue, why I think it's so prevalent amongst these communities, I reckon, is access to healthcare information in a format and in a place where they feel comfortable accessing it, they understand it. Because, you know, if you think about it, if these communities could access healthcare information, there was more awareness, they may be able to pick up signs earlier, so they could do the interventions they needed to prevent them getting to that state in the first place, which is, you know, exactly why we need constant promotion and constant awareness. You know, the Southeast Asian community, Caribbean community with their blood pressure, you know, they're more prone to it. But if it's a silent, it's, you know, it's known as a silent killer because people don't know they have it. But I think one of the big things, yeah, you know, obviously lifestyle is important, but lifestyle is across the board. You know, we all have a poor lifestyle in general. It doesn't really fit into one ethnicity. You know, we're often blamed, like, you know, sadly with COVID, we noticed that, you know, the BAME community, sorry, I hate that word BAME, the ethnic minority community were more at risk. And we know that, I mean, lifestyle doesn't go into that. So,
Yeah.
you know, there must be something else going on that we're not picking up on.
Is there a bias? Look, I could have said prejudice, but I'm going to use the word bias to be politically correct here. Is there a bias in the medical institutions towards illnesses that disproportionately affect people from Black and Asian communities?
See, that's
I personally think, and you'll see it on my page, that I do think there is a huge bias towards the ethnic minority. And in fact, it's been proven. I mean, if you look at women's experience in, for instance, maternity health care, you know, there's been a huge, a lot of research into how, you know, Afro-Caribbean women have felt that they weren't heard. You know, they're less likely to be given pain medication. And that's not right. You know, and I think there is, I mean, I love the NHS and I love global healthcare. And we're talking about a small minority here, but it has such a big effect. So I do agree, medical racism sadly does exist still. I don't know, what do you think, Aziza?
No, I completely agree. And there was an excellent paper when you talk about the COVID-19 deaths and the disparities in that. There was an excellent paper by the BMJ where they discussed that. And
Yeah.
they did, you know, point out that racism is a massive factor that played part, because when they removed, initially, I think they said that Black men were 3 to 4 times more likely to die of COVID compared to their white counterparts. But then when they corrected it for age and so on and so forth, they found that it was 2 times. Regardless, why is it still 2 times more? There has to be something in there. So in the paper, they do say there's a lot of element of racism. And as you say, there's the fact that in the UK, the Embrace report, so the report for babies and maternal well-being, essentially they said that women are now, it used to be 5 times, but Black women are 4 times more likely to die from the maternal from childbirth or leading after childbirth compared to their white counterparts 4 times. You know, you can't adjust anything for that. There's just no, and that's in the UK. It's similar in the States as well. It's quite bad there as well. So there's racism that's inherent, and then there's obviously institutional racism, and then there's direct upfront racism as well. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Dr. Andleed, was you going to add something because I mean the mortality rate is so high. It really, really beggars the question. And it's not a question I wanted to skirt around because it's prevalent. We're talking about people's health. So here's a question. I mean, you're both doctors, you're both in the NHS. I'm an advocate of not listening to let me just rephrase that. I'm an advocate of not taking everything my doctor says as gospel. And this is with greatest respect. This is just me, my own personal opinion, because I just believe that we should also do our own research and take it in our own hand. I know you doctors do some great work, and I love my doctor, and I love you too as doctors. But when you're faced with that, you hear so many stories of people going to the medical institution, getting treatment that they feel they shouldn't necessarily have, or not getting the care. Here's a question then. And so why, if my mum suffers from hypertension, blood pressure, high blood pressure, obesity, why should I then trust the medical institution? Why should I do that? And this is a kind of a controversial question, and you answer it any way you are, but let's not skirt around it. If we're going to go down the road of bias, then I think we need to answer quick. So why should I trust the medical institution? Why should I trust my mum, my dad, with their healthcare in your hands?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I think it's a matter. I think. Again, I'll say it's actually a small minority. It's not the majority, and I think the majority of medics that have come through, especially now, are far more mindful of these issues, and I think by talking about them, has raised awareness. Sadly, COVID has actually taken this issue and actually literally brought it to light, and you can't ignore it. We all knew it was there, but this has really highlighted it. Why you should trust your mum and dad to come to us, I'm just talking from my experience, is that I think I actually value when my patients come in and have done some research, because if you have an engaged patient who's done their research, they take ownership of their illness, they have interest in their illness, so they're more likely to be compliant with any suggestions you make. And the thing is, what patients want is they want to feel heard. They want to feel that they've been listened to and heard. So, if you brought your mum and dad to me and they had any concerns, I would listen to them, because that's part of our job, is to listen and address those concerns. And I think, the media potentially has played us in a bad light, that all we do is just issue medication, but that's actually the last thing we do. Well, that's the last thing. I know that Aziza and I both probably practice very similarly, and a lot of the doctors on Instagram that you follow are the same. They're very into health education, health promotion. Let's correct the misinformation out there. And also, if they said to me, well, why should I trust you? I would say to them, well, why don't you? What is underlying that mistrust? Where has it come from? And we need to address it. And I also think, as a medical healthcare profession as a whole, globally, we need to accept the past, and we need to acknowledge what was done, and we need to bring that forward, and perhaps even personally even apologize. Say, we understand where your concerns come from. I did a huge post on medical racism, and it goes into the history of it all. And it's very sad. But I think that's why you should. I hope you can send your parents to me, Ken. It'd be great fun.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. It's just a question I felt needed to be answered. I mean, I would trust my parent with any of you, but I think it's a question that needs to be answered, especially in this period, because people are there. I think there's even a stronger mistrust of the medical profession since COVID. I think that mistrust has even got more deeper. So it's a question for you to answer. Why, Dr. Sesay? How would you answer that question?
I completely agree with everything that Dr. Andy said. Essentially, I think also what's really important is the fact of the matter, the ethnic minority groups, and as she said, it's minority, who have faced these disparities. They do need to see more representation of people who do look like them. So these shows that show that, there are doctors who can literally empathize because we're part of that ethnic minority group. I think it's really important that we are there and we're represented. And like Dr. Andy said, it's so important that we listen. And I think, like she says, a lot of the times patients who aren't listened to or who don't trust the medical professions generally they often say it's because you don't listen to me and I'll just do what I want. And but what I have found is if I take that extra 5-10 minutes to, I know it's hard, obviously we have pressures and so on, but if I take the extra time in the first consultation to literally, break down the condition and the management plan and why we're doing it, majority of the times the patients will listen and they will take their medication. Because there's been so many instances where patients are on so many medications and they're not taking any of them because they don't know why. They just don't trust the system. So it's just going to cause more damage than good. What's the point? I'm getting too many side effects. And another thing I would also say is, if you feel you need to have a rapport and feel comfortable with your doctor. If you feel that it's difficult and you don't really trust who you're talking to, then ask for a second opinion.
Yeah.
There are more than one of us around.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they're absolutely entitled to a second opinion. But yeah, there you go.
I was actually gonna ask that question. So I was gonna say, well, looking at it from a couple of points. One is, if you're not happy with your doctor, you do have the right to change your doctor. Let's be honest with you, because it's like anything. You do need to feel comfortable with your doctor. So you don't think because you have your doctor, you have to stay with that doctor. I would still definitely think our doctors do a great job. And I would take my mum, if she was alive, which I did do, and my children to a doctor. But I know there is this kind of chasm that's building at the moment where people are, in a sense, trusting Google. And there are some information, but let's admit, there's a lot of falsehoods on Google for people's health. So I just wanted you guys to answer that question. But then also, I think on the other side of the fence, I think there was a need for just possibly some doctor training and sense of empathy and communication and understanding. You're under a lot of pressure. You're under an incredible amount of pressure. And it's a difficult job you do, and I admire the job you do. But when I come and sit in your patient in your room, I'm not thinking about how many other patients you've seen today, yesterday. I'm thinking about me, and I want my attention. And unfortunately, a doctor doesn't always see it like that. It's kind of like a conveyor belt, which I felt sometimes. But I do believe that the medical profession do a fantastic job, and doctors like you are individuals that people should trust. But the disparity is there. So we spoke about possible biases, or even as far as you went to racism. But let's speak from a cultural perspective of whether or not, is there a cultural aspect in the sense of behaviors or even food, why these three illnesses, there are more, are so prevalent within the Black and Asian community? So is it cultural, from a sense of behavioral and nutrition, why these illnesses are so prevalent? Any one of you wanted to come in on this? This is your floor now. I see you can't wait. God, Dr. Sesay, God, I can see.
I was just going to say with regard who's leaning forward. I don't know if I want to say.
God.
When we say culturally, one of the issues is the mentality of, I don't have any symptoms, so I am well. Period. Don't give me anything because I am well. I don't have any symptoms. That is from my African background. That is one of the major issues. I have so many relatives or family friends who are not taking their blood pressure tablets because they say, I am fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I have no symptoms. Why are they giving me blood pressure tablets? And guess what? Heart attacks, strokes happen. Or they took it and their blood pressure is now normal. I'm not going to take it anymore because my blood pressure is normal. And I think that's a cultural or even just mindset that we need to try and change. And we can do this through these discussions. Also, again, speaking from the African background, some of what we do eat a lot of greens, we do, but we do put a lot of, the seasoning. The Maggi has so much salt in it. Palm oil, we love our palm oil. We love our meat, we love our red meat. So all these different things can contribute to obesity, which then leads to diabetes, which then leads to hypertension. And so, yeah, there are things that we are doing that's not helping. And exercise, we're not exercising as much as we used to. A lot of us have jobs that are quite sedentary nowadays, unfortunately, and that has an impact.
Yeah. Before I come to Dr. Ahmed, do you know when I hear meat under the attack, I've got to come in because for my protocol says meat is absolutely fine. You eat grass-fed meat is absolutely fine because that's what my protocol and that's what I lost my weight on. So I'm just coming in there. But you know what's great is that we can have different opinions and still agree because it's all about health. It's all about health. So I just
when I say that, I mean moderation. Like with everything, you need to have it in moderation. But we know
it's okay. It's okay. I feel it. It's all good. We're all love here. Yeah? But I know Dr. Ahmed wanted to come in and have a conversation about the culture.
I'm going to leave you to battle this out.
So culturally, Dr. Ahmed.
What I want to say about, if you're linking obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure, and what cultural influences there potentially are in our communities. Let's be honest, exercise is something. If we look at our great grandparents and our grandparents, from my grandparents were farmers. So they would spend the whole day out on the fields, and they would eat food that was, hearty. So lots of grains, a lot of green meat. They would eat meat, but they would eat it in a way that was quite healthy, and they burn so much of it off. And so obviously our lifestyle across the globe, and I think that it's without the ethnicity factor, has become more sedentary. And we're so, attached to our computers. We're not one, I know I'm a British Pakistani, and, exercise and us don't go together. So it's something that we need to start addressing. Food-wise, yeah, definitely, Southeast Asian foods can be quite heavy, but again, can be very healthy. You look at your lentils, you look at your greens, the fruits, vegetables, and meat in moderation and cooked in the right way. Even, dare I say it, small moderation, tiny bits of, fat, good fat, etc., etc. But there are other things as well to consider, things like, smoking as well. Obviously, that's really important. And, we chew betel nut, we have shisha. And there's other things that, that are specific to certain ethnicities that we must take into account. Coffee, even caffeine has been linked to a number of things now. It can increase blood pressure. And I know that, for instance, Middle Eastern people drink phenomenally strong coffee. I mean, I'm telling you, they make my hair stand on end. So these are all things that, we can adapt in that sort of like pre-diabetic, pre-becoming hypertensive stage. And that they will all obviously help in weight control and weight management. But there are definitely those things to consider. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, from my perspective, what some people may see as healthy, I don't necessarily see that as healthy. I mean, the way I look at it is we have official guidelines, but yet obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cancer, all these, many is on the rise. And, I think we've had as many gyms, more people exercising. Well, not during COVID, but they're still exercising. But something is obviously not working for people. And we're going to move to some questions. So if anybody has any questions, please just put them either on Facebook or wherever you're watching this from. Just use the box to ask the question to any of the doctors in the doctor's room today. But before we do that, you mentioned something quite pertinent, in fact that some of these illnesses don't have any symptoms. And I always say to people, you're sick before you're sick. So you're sick before your body actually manifests sickness. So when it comes to checking, as far as I'm aware, there's a, as you go through the ages and the decades, there's a certain amount of time the frequency either, once a year or once every other year. So could you just guide us through any, I'll bring it to yourself. If you want to check as you progress through your ages, how often should you go for a check? Is it when it's age specific, and also if it's gender specific as well? All right, so any one of you could answer that question.
Aziza, do you want to do this? Because I know you did a post about health screening.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just feel like I kept jumping in. That's why I didn't want to. Basically, I just did a video on what to expect on your NHS check. So that's based in the UK, but they have equivalents in different parts of the world. Essentially, in the UK, the NHS health check is targeted to individuals who don't have any pre-existing conditions between the ages of 40 to 74. And this is to try and pick up the diseases that we've just spoken about: high blood pressure, diabetes, also to try and prevent strokes, heart attacks from occurring. And finally, dementia is one of the aspects that they look for within those groups of individuals. And what happens is you get your blood pressure, your height, your weight checked, and they do an individual risk score. And based on that, they give you a management plan. And it's actually through there, like Dr. Andy was saying, that a lot of patients suffering with hypertension are found. Unfortunately, though, the uptake of that, again, I think the Office of National Statistics had said in 2019 that Black and African groups, unfortunately, were the lowest to participate in those invitations, because you get invited for it. You don't have to go, but we encourage you to go, though the numbers are improving. And you get checked every 5 years if everything is normal. But every year, if they do find that you have high blood pressure or diabetes, or more frequently, depending on the severity.
So if you're not, then, so if you're not, I know you're going to come in, Dr. Andleed. If you're not, should I go for it? Because I'm 58 this year. So should I go for a checkup every year? Or if I'm in my 40s, should it be every other year? And, you know, because obviously people may be talking about themselves, or if I'm in my 60s or 70s and they got their people are thinking about their parents, there may be no signs. But how often should they go for an annual checkup to catch these symptoms earlier, Dr. Andleed?
Well, I think, that's a really interesting point. So I think the majority, globally start from about 50. So you'll do your first one. And then if that picks up something like Aziia said, then you would have it once a year. If not, then it's longer, depending on where you live in the world. But I think, it's a really important fact about the what do you do if you're younger, because you won't get invited in. And I think, if for instance, your mum or your dad suffer from any of these conditions, it's worthwhile getting yourself checked up, especially as a lot of these things are silent. And it's also important to remember that, doctors aren't the only ones that can do it. A lot of, pharmacies and chemists will have a weighing scale. They'll have a blood pressure machine, and even do a random sugar check as well. But I think more and more people are becoming empowered with their health, and with the use of technology and smartphones and Fitbits.
Dr. Andy, can I just interject? I think you just said something really important, and I just want to really just reiterate that. Are you saying I don't have to wait to go to my doctor? I can go, and please just elaborate on that, because that is really, really key. What would be the process?
So if you're concerned about anything really, you just pick up the phone and call your surgery, because you don't have to wait. And if there is a reason why people are concerned about their health. They may be experiencing symptoms. Their father may have just died of a heart attack at a relatively young age, or mum's been. So we would sit and we would talk to them, especially with COVID now. We would sit and talk to them and say to them, right, this is what we should do. Normally we would get our nurse to see them. Our nurses are very highly trained now, and they would do just all these checks and then pick it up. But again, a lot of the surgeries now have blood pressure machines even in their waiting rooms, so you don't actually have to have an appointment. You can just go in, and amazingly what they've done is that you enter your name and date of birth, you weigh yourself, you check your blood pressure, and it will automatically go into your records. So I know getting an appointment is quite difficult, but absolutely, if you are experiencing any symptoms, COVID, no COVID, you need to go and speak to one of your
Could you speak
doctors.
about the pharmacy? Could you mention the pharmacy as well, please?
Yeah. So chemists and pharmacists. Aziia, do you want to take over?
Yeah, no, you can just walk in. They offer the service. So the NHS health check can also be done at the pharmacist. And what often happens is when you get those checks done, and if they do find that your blood pressure is high or your blood sugar is high, or they even check for cholesterol now, they can do that as a finger prick test. Then they ask you to contact your GP so you can have the whole range of tests, the whole range of blood tests, and so on to confirm and diagnose it. Because remember, just one reading doesn't give you that diagnosis. You need to go through, not extensive, but more tests to confirm it. And like Dr. Andleed said, if you're experiencing symptoms and you contact, but if you're also just concerned because of your family history, majority of the times we will just do your bloods and we will check you over to alleviate that stress within you and also to reassure ourselves as clinicians.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really
But
interesting. Go ahead,
sorry.
Dr. Andy. Go, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, Aziza, don't you think also that we need to bring out these into forums where our patients feel comfortable? There was a whole drive to moving, for instance, COVID vaccinations into places such as churches and mosques. And I really think this is an opportunity to move screening out into places where people are familiar with it, and also they'll be less stressed, because obviously we know that when you go to the doctor's surgery your blood pressure goes up. But if you go to your prayer, if you go to a prayer, or if you go to a community centre, whatever the hub is, and having someone there doing these checks, I think we'll pick up so much more, and I think engagement will be better, because people will trust where they are because they're familiar with where they are. And I think that's what we really need to move forward with now. What do you think?
No,
Yeah,
no,
no,
I completely agree. And
I,
actually, there's a
I just love that pharmacy thing. I didn't realize you could get all those checks in the pharmacy, and as you said, it's a
Yeah,
definite
yeah,
safer place. So I think that's key
yeah.
information that you're sharing here. Dr. Caesar, you
But
was going
just
to say
just to
something.
emphasize, sorry, that because of COVID, not many places are doing that at the moment. But
At the
hopefully, with
moment.
the roadmap of lockdown easing, it's something to definitely consider post COVID. Fingers
Right.
crossed.
So we're going to go to the questions in one moment, but I just have one question. Because I understand diabetes can be hereditary, obesity as well, genetic can be. But can high blood pressure, can that also be, if that runs in the family, can that also be hereditary?
Yes.
A simple
It's a
yes. A
simple
simple
answer.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Simple. Yeah.
so all three of those could be hereditary. So if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, or if you have a line of obesity in your family, you are more inclined to be able to contract those things. So you should, yeah, be more mindful. Absolutely, great, fantastic. Let's just go to. We've had a couple of questions in. The first question comes in from Janet, and Janet says, "Is it possible?" For type 1 diabetics to treat their disease without injecting insulin.
So, when I was explaining the difference between the two, type 1 diabetes, your body is not producing insulin at all. So, your body needs insulin in order to process glucose correctly. So, yeah, anyone with type 1 diabetes needs insulin. Unfortunately, you will have to inject yourself with insulin for life.
Yeah, your pancreas is not producing the beta cells. It cannot produce insulin. So, and because insulin, when insulin was discovered, it was a lifesaver for type
Yeah,
1 diabetes. Type
yeah.
1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and invariably with two. But there is another type of diabetes, which is type LADA, which is type 1.5, which is a mixture between type 2 and type 1. But that's also seen as an autoimmune disease. So, yes, Janet, you need insulin. You can control your blood sugar fluctuations through a low carb diet. There are studies to do that, but obviously you have to be careful about going hypo with that. And yeah, ketoacidosis is not something you have to also be concerned about, but with the right management. But yeah, you definitely need insulin. All right. She also says Janet also said she doesn't eat. She no longer eats the way her parents did. And so I suppose that comes back to our cultural conversation, whereby the way our parents ate was a certain way. Now she's more informed, so that's not so much a question. Let me see. So Isaiah has a question here. It's about blood pressure. He said, how would you explain a condition where the diastolic pressure is consistently within normal range while the systolic is above the normal range?
Yeah, so you do see that as a separate entity known as systolic hypertension, where it's just the upper reading which is elevated. Now, if I'm correct, I believe it's much more prevalent in the elderly community, but we do see it, and we would. What I would do if someone had picked up that it was just the systolic or the upper reading, is we would normally actually organise a 24-hour blood pressure monitoring. Is that's where you get fitted with a blood pressure machine, and it records your blood pressure for 24 hours, and then it would allow you to get an average to, and that would be the best way forward, and that would decide your treatment pathway. But it is a known phenomenon. It's known as systolic hypertension.
Okay, thank you very much for answering that. Again, let me encourage you, if you have a question, just put it in the box here. I think you guys have been absolutely wonderful. I think there's some real good points that have been covered today. We're going to come back to a couple of questions. So we're going to wait to see if anybody has any questions, because I have a couple of questions I'd like to put to you. But before we do that, we have this interim, because we spoke about obesity, and obesity is the link, and Dr. Sesay spoke about sugar. And this is something we have every single week called the Sugar Smash, whereby we just kind of go through some food and you kind of guess how much sugar is inside. So if you do have a question, ladies and gentlemen, please put it in the box. We will answer the questions when we come back. But now it's time for what I call the Sugar Smash, all right? So this is how it works. Look, sugar from my protocol is toxic to your body. We have about a teaspoon of sugar in our body at any one time, about 4 grams, maybe 4.2, 4.4, but it's about a teaspoon worth of sugar. And as was mentioned, you know, our pancreas and insulin wants to remove it out of our bloodstream because it's toxic. But sugar comes in various forms. As you can see, you've got the fruit up there, which is fructose, and the rice, which is glucose, turns to glucose. So all of these are forms of sugar, which my protocol says if you eat in excess, depending on your carb tolerance, yes, depending on your metabolic condition, they can make you get diabetes, high blood pressure, and more importantly, make you put on weight. So this part of the show is all about making you aware of the sugar content in the form of glucose or fructose in certain foods, because sometimes when you look at foods, all they look at is the table sugar, but we must appreciate that, you know, certain foods do raise our blood sugar levels and create glucose. So this is about raising awareness. And I have 3 fruits here, and there are 3 Caribbean fruits here today. And the first one is what you will call stinking toe. I don't know why they called it stinking toe, but they did call it stinking toe. It's a fruit from Jamaica they call stinking toe. And the question is, around about 100 grams of this stinking toe fruit, how many teaspoons of sugar is in it? So you've got 3 options. And listen, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you can include yourself in this. So we just say A, B, or C. If you think the 100 grams of this stinking toe fruit, again, why they call it stinking toe, I don't know. Is it 8.75 teaspoons, 9.5 teaspoons, or 10 teaspoons? Have a guess on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll allow Dr. Sesay or Dr. Andleed to have a guess. What would you say? Is it A, B, or C? So we've got some A and B coming because they know the game. They know the game, but it's a serious thing here. So I'm gonna let me come to Dr. Andleed to guess first. Janet, we've got some B's and A's. What would you say? What would you say it's coming in at? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, stinking toe. I know. I can understand.
Why it would be called that, I have no idea.
It's just the name of it. But
it looks like a gangrenous toe. I reckon it's B.
You reckon B. So you're saying B. Sesay, what are you saying?
Yeah, I was thinking the same. It looks, is that whole grain? Is it a whole grain?
It's a fruit. It's a fruit. It's actually a fruit.
Oh, it's a fruit. Okay.
Yeah. So what would you say?
Probably B.
B. So we've got B. Well, B looks quite popular there. So let's just smash this fruit here. So it's 100 grams of stinking toe. Let's just smash it and let's see where we're coming here. How many teaspoons are in this? 8.5 in 100 grams of this. This is an incredibly quite sweet fruit here. So 8.5, and that is A. Who said A? Primrose. Well done, Primrose. Let me give you a little round of applause there. And for the doctors in the house, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you know, that's the one. That's the one. And for anyone who said B, Lorna, that goes for you and you, Julie. But I really appreciate you taking part. You're going to have an opportunity to redeem yourself. We got one more fruit and two more fruit. I think you might know this one here. So the next fruit is gooseberries. 100 grams of gooseberries. This is one to me. Is it A, 1.5, B, 3.5, or C, 4 teaspoons? Come on, guys. Let's have you guessing. Is it A, B, or C? Come on, YouTube, Facebook, guess. Come on, let's have your guesses. Let's have it. This is 100 grams. I mean, I love gooseberries. I grew up on them when I was younger. This is 100 grams of gooseberries. Is it A, 1.5 teaspoons, B, 3.5, or C, 4? So we've had Primrose come straight in with A. Okay, and Miss B, Miss coming with A. Janet's coming with A. A's coming in strong here. A looks like it's coming in strong. What say you, Dr. Sesay? A is coming in really strong here.
Yeah.
I'm June's coming with B. Huh? You're coming with B?
I'm thinking B. Go
Dr. Andleed?
I'm going to be a maverick, and I'm going to say C.
Oh, you're pushing the boat out today. So we've got the full house. We've got A, B, and C. So let's smash this fruit and see how much is inside this. See how many teaspoons of glucose or fructose is inside there, and it is 1.5, and it is A. Well done, Primrose. Miss B, Aziia, Lorna, well done. Let me give you a round of applause. And to the doctors in the house. Okay. Yeah, I know. Well, listen, I didn't know until I researched. But you got one more chance to redeem yourself. I got one more chance here. And this fruit, well, stinking toe, to be honest with you, stinking toe is not so bad when I really, really think of it, unless you're at the high part of it. And the reason why this is so important is if you are suffering from something like diabetes, my protocol says, look, you would have to reduce the sugar in your food, and that sugar includes some sweetened fruits. And for many people, fruits has a form of sugar called fructose, and that still affects your liver, called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which can then affect insulin resistance. So fruit is, on my protocol, is still something you have to be aware of. The amount of sugar is in fruit. So this is the last one here. Are the doctors in the house going to get one right? I'm just playing, and you guys are excellent. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing you. I can't help it. I'm being good today. So we have A, 10.5, B, 12.5, or C, 14.5. Let's have the guesses come in. We say A, B, or C, and I know you guys are going to get this one right. This one's called tamarind. Again, it's a Caribbean fruit here. So what are we saying? A. Some people have done really, really well so far. Is it A, B, or C? So we've had Aziia coming with C. We've had a B coming from Ms. 18. And yes, because I know there's slightly bit of delay. So just your guys with A and B. This is a lovely fruit. It's kind of fruit you kind of break. It looks gorgeous, doesn't it? You kind of break it open.
I love this fruit, and I'd be surprised if I'm really surprised it has that much sugar.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Oh, so we've had a full house now. We've had Lorna coming with C. So and Charmaine coming with C as well, as we can see on the screen. You can see some of them, and we've had Junie coming with A. Absolutely. So you're gonna call it, Doctor C. You're gonna call it because you know this fruit. You're gonna call it.
I think it's A because I don't think it's that sweet.
Okay, you don't think it's that sweet. Okay, Jude and Dr. Andleed.
I'm gonna say B.
You're gonna say B. Okay, so we're gonna say
I
A.
think it's quite sweet.
Yeah. Well, let's smash that fruit. 5. Anyone else? 4, 3, 2, 1. I've got my fingers crossed for you guys, because I want. I've got my fingers crossed for you. Let's smash that fruit and see how we're looking. Let's smash that fruit, and it is. Wow!
Oh,
That is a sweet fruit.
Wow.
Absolutely sweet fruit. And for everybody, including the doctors, it is a yes. That's it.
Some people
Definitely.
did get please. Charmaine.
Oh, Charmaine. Oh, Lorna. Oh, Lorna. My apologies. Oh, Aziia as well. Oh, Aziia and Lorna. Oh, there you go.
This
My
is
apologies.
so eye-opening for me because I can eat like
Yeah.
a whole box of it in one sitting. I had no idea.
It is an incredibly sweet fruit. A really, really, it's 58 grams of sugar in the form of fructose. It's incredibly sweet. Anybody on my protocol, I would tell them to stay away from this fruit here. But it's sweet and tastes nice.
look at Aziz's face.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what this section's about. It's just about drawing awareness to free foods. You can make your own choice. I am just the messenger here, allowing you to understand the fruit, the sugar in the fruit. Then you can make your own choice. And each week we do 3 different foods, fruits, drinks, whatever. And it is enlightening. It was enlightening for me when I done my research on this. I thought, wow. That is a lot. And if you are suffering from blood sugar, hyperglycemia, insulinemia, or anything like that, then these are the kind of things that you really need to stay away from, or even reduce. I would say abstinence, depending on your metabolic condition. But well done, Charmaine, Julie, Lorna, Primrose, Janet, Aziia, and everybody who took part today. I hope it was enlightening for you. Now, because my protocol is all about reducing the carbohydrates, reducing the fructose, because for me, I believe the key to illness is hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, and hyperinsulinemia. I eat foods that do not raise my blood sugar in such a way and keeps my insulin stable. I mean, when I trained as a health coach, stable insulin was the key throughout it. They didn't even explain it in the way I understand it now. And for that now, it means I can share with you some of the recipes I eat. Now, if you go to my website, which is kenmbarnes.com, and you go to the top, you'll see something called free meal plan. There, you can download a 5-day meal plan recipe. And these are recipes that I prescribe to my clients that you can eat that won't raise your blood sugar in the way that normal standard or sad American diet meals will do, because they're very low in carbohydrates. And it includes things like that. You got the garlic trout there, but it includes things like curry salmon. Absolutely gorgeous, a fantastic dish. It's my recipe as well, because I actually do like to cook. And the thing I like to promote is the jerk chicken. It has a jerk chicken recipe there, and you can download the recipe and the sauce, and you can use it with jerk lamb or jerk chicken or whatever. I had some yesterday. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's got like a full shopping list there. It's got instructions how to make it. It's even got the macros, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fat, everything you would need to know. And it's even got instructions about what you can do with leftovers, because this is the thing when you're planning a new lifestyle, planning and preparation, it can tell you what you can do with leftovers with each meal. So go to kenmbarnes.com, look at the top, and you'll see free meal plan. And you just wanted to try the diet that helped me lose 50 pounds, reverse my diabetes, and cure my sleep apnea, go to the website and download that, absolutely free. And I just want to tell you that when you on that site, you will see my Lean Mind Body Method Reset You program. It is a phenomenal program. I'm launching it as a group program incredibly soon, so look out for that. And you know, the pre-diabetes bootcamp, I've put that back because I've included that now in the Reset You program, and you'll see that on my site when you go in there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just subscribe to the channel. It would be nice. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just like the video and share the video, because I think these doctors have really enlightened us today with some great information. And why not share the love with some other people? All right. And if you're watching it on Facebook, the same way, just share the love and like the video and make a comment. I think that's absolutely wonderful. So that bit there was enlightening for you to understand. So yeah, I saw your face, Dr. Aziia. You say, oh, absolutely. I mean, every time I do it, people are very, very surprised. And some of the stuff I mean, for me personally, I haven't eaten a banana in well over 4 years. Banana is the sweetest fruit you can have. It is so sweet, and I used to love bananas. But hey, it's not even a sacrifice. It's an investment in health that has helped me look and feel the way I do. All right, some great information that you guys shared about the three things we're talking about. I'm going to go off very slightly because I think we've really covered as much as we can do on this show about diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. I just want to touch on, because I have you here, I just want to touch on COVID. I know this is off script a little bit, but just want to touch on COVID and the COVID, the vaccine, and people's perception of it. Because obviously I had COVID over the new year, and fortunately, well, it hit me quite bad, and for that point I know the reason why it did that, but I recovered and was healthy enough. But a number of my few friends I have didn't, and I know some people who are suffering from long COVID now. So the perspective I want to talk about is from the vaccination and the COVID vaccination, and why, as medical practitioners, you feel that people should trust in that vaccine and take that vaccine. I'm going to come to Dr. Andleed first, and then you after Dr. Sesay. So, and yeah, Dr. Andleed, the COVID, the vaccination, I know you're part of that program. Why should we trust that vaccination?
Gosh, I think there's a long answer to it, but in summary, I think people should understand that, one, I've had it. It's important, and now I just want to dispel some myths. No, I wasn't paid to have it. No, I'm not part of Big Pharma. No, it doesn't contain a chip. It's not being organized by Bill Gates. I don't know how many stories I've come across. There's a lot of misinformation about it affecting fertility, about it being rushed through. I can wholeheartedly say that it's not true. It's not. It hasn't been rushed through. You should trust it. The reason it would develop so quickly is because basically the whole world or the whole globe was looking for a vaccine. So everything was put to one side. All the scientists around the world were working towards that. Things that would normally the regulation council, the regulation authorities, they basically put it at the forefront. So there's many reasons why it was given approval. It's been tested, it was tested on, people before people went into trials. So I think there's been a lot of misinformation. I think it's fear. I think it's the fear of the unknown. But, I like to remind everyone that we vaccinate our children. We vaccinate ourselves against flu every year. And we've never had these discussions before. I think there's a lot of misinformation being spread about it. No one's being used as guinea pigs because they've been tested before. And the side effects are no different to when you have a flu jab. I had it, I felt a bit achy. I slept it off. I was fine the next day, and I actually have a number of other health issues, and I was totally okay. So I can't stress it enough that this is our way out. This is our way out of this awful time. And I'm tired of losing people that I care about and I love. We've lost too many, and I think it's time this is the only hope we actually have. So, Aziza.
Thank you very much. So, Aziza, again, my question to you is, but there's a lot of mistrust within the Black and Asian communities. There's a lot of mistrust of this, and not just of the vaccine, but mistrust because they feel that people talk about eugenics, people talk about it's a targeted campaign against that. What would you say to anybody watching this from those particular communities about the vaccine?
Okay, Dr. Andy basically, she said everything I was going to say with regards to encouraging people to take the vaccine. The reality is the last 12 to 13 months have been like a sort of dream. It doesn't feel real that we've all been locked up in our houses essentially, and so many of us are suffering with our mental health, and essentially what we want is something that will get us out of it. And actually there's been a lot of research recently that's come out to show that the vaccines have helped to reduce hospitalization in Scotland, for one, by about 85% for either vaccine. Oxford was a bit higher. So it is showing that it is being effective. There are not as many people being hospitalized, and also it's reducing the number of people who are dying since people have had the vaccine. The other thing to say is, of course, there's that distress with the racial disparities that we've spoken about already. But it's to emphasize at the moment, it's not targeted only towards Black people or South Asians, or the ethnic minorities in general. The majority of the people who are taking the vaccines right now are of the white ethnic groups. So it's not targeted to just us. And everyone, when you go to the vaccination site, it's every ethnicity that's having the same vaccine at the same time. They don't change the vaccine over because you're not white, or you're South Asian, or you're Black, or so on, or any other ethnicity. It's everyone is having the same vaccine if it's the one that they're giving. So if it's the Pfizer, if it's the Oxford AstraZeneca, Moderna, so on and so forth. So that's what I would say to try and encourage people. Yes, I know that there were two French doctors who said, "Oh, we need to essentially experiment on Africans," and again, that raised alarm bells. But at the moment, it is actually it's proving to be effective. If you wanted to wait to see, there is now proof that's showing that it is being effective. So I hope
No,
that
no,
reassures
absolutely.
people.
I appreciate your openness. I mean, I just thought I'd use the opportunity. And just so the audience are aware, they had no idea I was going to ask them that question. So I kind of dropped that in there because I think it's important at this time. We're in a pivotal moment, and everybody has their perceptions of the vaccine. And I wanted you to really just give your honest answer, which you did. And for anybody watching the show, the reason why there was a particular focus was this show doesn't so much focus particularly on illnesses that affect a certain group like Black or Asian, but it was just particularly these three illnesses: hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. They're far more prevalent within the Black and Asian community. That's why we chose to have that focus today. And the mortality rate is so high. And again, with the COVID vaccine, there is the greater skepticism coming from the COVID vaccine from the Black and Asian communities. I mean, their own research are showing that. So I think it's an important question to be able to ask and answer them. And hopefully the audience listening got some form of comfort, because we are in a situation, we do want to get back to a normality of, as if you want to call it a normality. I think it will be a new normal. I don't think it will be, I think it will just what we call a new normal. But there is a way out of it, and the vaccine, because that's on everyone's mind at the moment. And people now, they're going to call me in my age. Maybe I'll look in my mailbox this week and there'll be a letter for my age range, because they're coming down the age range, now. So, and other people will get in. Yes. So I really appreciate your honesty and openness with that. I think it's been a really great conversation. We always like to leave with some tips, some general words of advice, some sage, some oracle advice. Let me start with Dr. Sesay. Just, we spoke about, obviously, the big three, spoke about the COVID or anything, but your doctors, your general practitioner, you see people in your surgery all the time, and, you're all about helping people with their health and ensuring that, empowering them to be able to do it. So based on the conversations that we had today and the topics, what message would you leave the audience with?
Okay, health is wealth, and you are literally in control. You have the power to change your life for the better. Healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, exercise, and so on. And it's also important to remember, we spoke about genetics and how if things run in the family, you're more prone to getting them. Genetics don't have to be your destiny. You can change it by leading that healthy lifestyle. You can prevent it, because prevention is better than cure. So I hope that that take home message rings home for a lot, rings true for a lot of people.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Andleed, what message would you leave the audience
I
with
don't know what to
today?
say after what Aziza said.
Yeah,
That's
good.
pretty much it. I think it's really important. I just want people to understand that I know what I want to say, that doctors are still seeing patients. So don't be scared to come and see us, regardless of what you may be experiencing. Because I just want to quickly put in is that people aren't attending their screening appointments. So, for instance, with cancers are now being picked up later, please don't ignore any symptoms you have. If you have any questions, DM any of us, and we'll be happy to answer them, because I think education empowers you, and it will allow you to understand what's going on with you. And so, if you have any concerns, you need to speak out and be happy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely great, and I think an important point there is don't allow your fear or your skepticism to stop you from seeking help, because some people they don't trust the medical establishment, they don't trust doctors. But as we said earlier on, you're sick before you're sick, so get a check. And the older you are, the more often you should get a check. And this goes to women as well as men. Let's try and get these things early. And if you are suffering from diabetes, hypertension, or even obesity, there are ways around it. There are, without medication sometimes, there are lifestyle changes that can help you to defeat these illnesses that are really causing people to live a shorter life. And the reason why I'm so passionate is because I believe people's health span should be as long as their lifespan. And for me, the shame is that enough people don't take the conversations that we're having seriously enough. They don't take it seriously. Um, they see this kind of conversation as not worth their time until their doctor says, this is what you're suffering, and then they take it seriously. But why not be proactive and take it seriously? That's why these conversations are so important. They really, really are. And I really do appreciate you taking your time out, because I know you're both busy, to come and share your expertise and knowledge with us here. So let me come to Dr. Andleed first. If people wanted to reach out to you after this, how can they contact you? How can they just reach out to you? You mentioned DM. How can they reach out to you, Dr. Andleed?
Oh, so I'm relatively new to Instagram. So my handle is @mumandmedic. So it'll be lovely to hear from you. And yeah, that's it really. I mainly go on Instagram. So it'll be lovely to hear from you.
So is that and A&D? Can you just spell it?
Oh yes, so it's and
Fondly.
then mum, MUM, and AND medic, MEDIC. So yeah, and I cover all sorts. I tend to focus on all sorts of things. So, but ethnic minority health, mental health, adolescence. I'm a huge champion for teenagers. So yeah.
You also did some great posts recently on andropause, on the male menopause recently as well. That's a really great post. That was interesting. I was quite checking. Do I suffer from that? Do I suffer from that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I'm actually, I mean, our last talk was on the menopause, and I think that's one of the reasons you reached out, was that I've got that personal. I'm going through it myself at the moment, so I thought, let me actually talk about it from a human perspective. So.
Absolutely, fantastic, really, really good. So, Dr. Sesay, if individuals wanted to reach out to you, how can they contact you?
So I'm in most social media platforms. It's always the same. Talks with Dr. Sesay. So that's Talks TALKS with WITH. Dr. Dr. Sesay SESAY. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and YouTube with the same name. And then if you want to reach out, you can. Please do. I also have a website, www.talkswithdrsesay. It's always talkswithdrsesay.com. And yeah, I post just like Dr. Andleed was saying, it's all about health promotion. I've recently started doing a what to expect reel. So 30-second video on what to expect if you're going for your screening. Cervical screening was one. Breast examination, how to do it, and so on and so forth. It's just giving people snippets of information so they can be interested in exploring it further.
Thank you very much. So look, on behalf of the audience, everybody who's listening, everybody who tuned in today, we really appreciate you guys taking the time out on your Sunday. We really do. You're returning visitors to the show, which is absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure you'll be back again. And Primrose just said thank you so much. She really appreciated it, and I'm sure she's speaking on behalf of everybody who's watched the show today. Really invaluable information. We covered quite a few subjects just to really spark the interest in people. So we really do appreciate you taking your time out. So I am just going to now put you guys back in the green room. If you hold on, I'm just going to close it and I'll be back with you. All right, so you just put you back in the green room. And Janet also said, thank you, doctors. All right, so another thank you. So it's been really, really appreciated. So I'll just put you back in the green room and then we will have a conversation after the show. All right.
Thank you.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the show today. And Charmaine also said it was very informative. We do appreciate your feedback. Absolutely. This is what it's all about. It's just about helping you to make health your habit. And this is what I love to do. This is what I love to do. I love to help people to make health their habit. And I love to make health my habit. So we're here every single week. Next week, we have a great guest. She calls herself a breast cancer warrior. If I called her survivor, she'd jump in. She called herself a breast cancer warrior. She survived breast cancer. But not only that, she's got a great story and she deals with so many other issues. So next week's going to be a great show. You are going to love Gloria. She is so powerful, such a powerful speaker, and she's got so much great information to share. So schedule that in your diary next week, the same time, 2 p.m. here. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll be notified, or you follow me on Facebook, or if you subscribe to the main list, especially if you download the meal plan, you'll be notified. Look, I am on Clubhouse for those of you who use Clubhouse, and myself and Dr. Sesay and Dr. Andleed, we're going to be doing some things on Clubhouse, which is the audio app. So I am in Clubhouse. You can find me on Clubhouse under Ken Barnes or at the LMBC. Just that's my Clubhouse handle. I have a club on there called Make Health Your Habit, so you can go there, or you can go to kenbarnes.club, kenbarnes.club, and that has a list of all my Clubhouse rooms. If you want to find out about my Lean Mind Body Reset You program, just go to Ken at the Ken M Barnes. It does say Ken at the Lean Mind Body Coach there at the bottom. That is an email you can use to contact me, but you can go to Ken at kenmbarnes.com and you can find out about the program I do, especially the Reset You program. It's a great program which will help reset your body and reset your life. It is phenomenal, a mind and body reset. So that's it for today. Another fantastic show. Really, I just love my guests. I just learned so much from the guests. And I appreciate the regular returners. I know some of you are here with me every single week, so you don't want to keep me here by myself. It's so great that you're here. Wonderful. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, guys. We're going to have a really great show. So I know for some of you it's morning, so some of you may be evening, but for me it's afternoon. So I'm now going to enjoy. I think I've got a little bit of my jerk chicken there from the jerk chicken sauce. So I'm going to enjoy that, guys. Listen, whatever you do, remember, there is no better habit that you can develop than to make health your habit. Listen, guys, bye. I will see you the same time next week for a great show. You have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Make Health Your Habit podcast live show. Remember, the views and opinions expressed during the show represent those of our guests and host alone. We hope you enjoyed the show.